In my mind, I see a line. And over that line, I see green fields and lovely flowers and beautiful white women with their arms stretched out to me over that line. But I can't seem to get there no how. I can't seem to get over that line. That was Harriet Tubman in the 1800s. And let me tell you something. The only thing that separates women of color from anyone else is opportunity.
Hey there, and welcome to the Mocha Girls Pit Stop Show, where women of color refuel on motivation and ignite their lives. I'm your host, Terri Lomax, and today we have an organized, ambitious, and incredibly inspiring woman here to chat with us. Tiffany Blassingame is a professional organizer. She helps students and parents organize their lives and get on track. Tiffany has an inspiring story that I can't wait to share with you. So, without further ado, Tiffany, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You are very, very welcome. You're very welcome. Tiffany, before we dive into your story and the practical tips that you're going to share with us about organizing, can you start off by telling us a little bit about yourself? Who is Tiffany? Where are you from? And what does one need to study to become a professional organizer? I've been wondering that.
Well, I'm Tiffany Blassingame. I'm a divorced mom of a preteen son. He's now 11 years old. I'm an educator. I've been in education for almost 20 years now. My passion lies in organization. So I have this mission to really help families and students develop a more organized approach to home and work and school. And I think that that's part of the piece that's missing sometimes between home and school with students and families. And the busier we get and the more distractions we have with smartphones and technology and teaching our children to manage screen time as well, that kind of support is needed. Because the school isn't doing as much with that, and it's difficult for parents to kind of get a hold of. I'm also particularly passionate about helping people who are going through some type of life circumstance. You know, you're just consumed with something that's going on in your life right now, and it may not be your ordinarily you may not be unorganized or can't get it or feel like you can't get it together, but something's happening in your life and it's causing you to kind of feel like things are out of control. And I work essentially with people who are just going through those life circumstances.
Oh, I'm so excited. I cannot wait to pick your brain. This is so exciting, Tiffany. All right, so tell us, like, what did you go to school for? What do you have to do to become a professional organizer? Or did you just pursue a certain field and get a degree and then kind of just fall into this field? Like, how did you get into this field?
So my background is teaching. I've always known that I was going to be some type of teacher. My mom was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, my great-grandmother was a teacher, and I became a teacher. I taught second, third grades and reading specialists, and that's my formal training. But I'm a member of the National Association of Professional Organizers, where we meet, we go through trainings and certifications, we take classes on just the best practices for organizing. And there's so many books out there, there's so many different ways to organize. And the reason why is because there's not one certain way that's best for everyone. And so you hear about the KonMari method, or you hear about put your mail, never touch your paper once, and those are all good strategies. It's just, is that the strategy that's best for you? So we go through these different classes and we have meetings. We work together. I subcontract with other organizers where I go out with them on their jobs of organizing garages or kitchens or pantries, things like that.
That's so awesome. Very, very cool. I can't wait to get into your organizing tips and best practices. But before we dive into that, I want to talk a little bit about your story outside of the professional realm. And we talked a little bit offline about your college sweetheart, and you kind of told me a little bit about your story there. So can you just kind of talk about how you and your college sweetheart met and what marriage was like, and then kind of the moment up to when you were 7 months pregnant and things kind of changed for you? If you can kind of take us through that journey.
Yeah. And I'm really happy that I was invited to talk about that part of my story. It's been 8.5 years since I was divorced, and I've never really talked about it. So I've kind of written about it maybe about a year ago, but I've never really shared my story, not even with my closest friends or family. I kind of just kept going, and we'll get into that, I'm sure, later. But this is not only I'm hoping that it's helping someone else, but I know that this is something that's helping me as well to kind of share my story. So thank you for inviting me to do that. So I met my ex-husband now when I was 18, and it was really the only adult relationship that I had ever known at that time. We got married at 25. We dated for a long time. I went through college, went through graduate school. We got married. I was living that kind of next steps life. Like this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to graduate from school, and then you get married, and then you have the child. So I was living that life, and I thought that because I was a good person, that this life will continue for me. And then when I was 7 months pregnant, I was 28 at that time, and a lot of things were revealed to me about my marriage, where I thought my marriage was one thing, and really other things were going on, and that wasn't the case. And I was just truly devastated. Like I just couldn't wrap my head around why this was happening. How would I get through this? This was not in my plan. I am an organizer, and I had organized my life and put things in place, and that wasn't in my plan. And I really didn't know how to get through that. And I had been through different things before. My father passed when I was 21. I didn't have a real good relationship with him. I did have abandonment issues from not having a father in the home and being really present, but because of his own emotional and mental issues from being in the Vietnam War, he just really was not able to be there. And I understood that, but I still had those issues. And so to me, this was just like another way that I had been abandoned by a man at that. And so that all of that just at 7 months pregnant, just really it was overwhelming and devastating. And I remember I'm a spiritual person, and I remember just crying out, like, I don't know what to do, right? I don't know how to get through this. I need some help. Like I don't have any answers for this. And I started praying and fasting, and then I started to see things begin to change in my life, and God providing some, clarification for me.
Wow, Tiffany, I cannot even imagine, I can't even imagine going through something so that's traumatic, especially at 7 months pregnant. You know what I mean? Like, I cannot even imagine. I guess my first question for you would be, who did you confide in during that time? I can only imagine that you needed a support system, going through that at that time. Who did you confide in?
My mom and my very best friend. And that was really it. Because I grew up without a father, the last thing I wanted to do was have this terrible relationship with this man that I truly did love and still had respect for, despite, the hurt and the pain. And I didn't want to, drag his name through the mud. He's such a terrible person. I didn't want to be that person. So I only really confided into those two because I needed their help. And we did end up separating after my son was born. And that was good for me as far as trying to figure out what I wanted to do instead of what, I knew he wanted from me, or what he, I wanted to do what I thought was best for my healing. And so that was my first people who I actually confided in. But I probably lived on my own for about a year before anyone knew that I was separated. So I would go to work as normal, and I go through all the motions. I drop my child off He was staying with an aunt, and I dropped him off, and she would still think that I was married, and take this home to your husband and do this and do that. And I just went through that, and then I would go home and I'd be depressed, and I couldn't figure out. I guess I was like a functional depressed person, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would get up and go through all the motions,
Right.
but I would come home and I would just lose it, and it would be difficult to have this newborn child there. And it was those times, like talking with my mom and talking with my best friend, who would come over and just begin to pick up things around the house for me and to just help me. I don't really know, how I would have gotten through that time without that. And now I always recommend that people seek counseling. A lot of times we don't do that. And eventually I did, but I didn't realize that that's what I was going through.
Yeah. Wow. And would you say that your ex-husband was supportive during that process? Because I know that you said that even though he had done this thing that was just unspeakable, you still loved him. I mean, this is the person that you married and thought you were going to spend your life with. Was he at all supportive during that process, or did he want to reconcile at all?
Yeah, he was. He was very supportive. We just had different views on how to move forward. We did start going to counseling together. We started when I was pregnant, and then we went back to counseling during the separation. He was supportive. We just had differences on how we wanted to move forward. And now we do have a great relationship, a wonderful co-parenting relationship. I couldn't be more proud of the father that he is to my son. While we have, of course, everything legalized and divorce papers and all of that, we don't really even have to follow that. I'm available 3 days out of the week, and I'd like for him to come stay with me for the week. Is that okay? I'll get him back and forth to school. And so that allows me to have some of the time that I need, one, to work on my business, or just to kind of reflect within myself. But the fact that he recognizes that it's difficult to be one person trying to be two people in the home, and that he definitely tries to support and give me that time.
Wow. And how did you get to that place? Because it sounds like there definitely had to be some forgiveness that took place before you all got to that point where you can say, this is my friend, we co-parent, where we have a good relationship now. How did you get to that place? I know it's been 8 years, but I'm sure the emotions, even after 8 years, I'm sure the emotions still come up every once in a while.
Absolutely. So it started with praying and fasting. And I remembered a message I heard about a woman named Anna in the Bible. And I started looking back through my notes. I want to find out about this woman named Anna. And you can find her in Luke chapter 2. But Anna was someone who waited a while to get married. She got married in her 30s, and 7 years later, her husband passed. And instead of her getting married again to her, husband's closest kin, her husband's brother, and the way that things were then, she decided to just go back to the temple and live a life of praying and fasting and service. And all the advice I had gotten was all about Ruth and Boaz, and your Boaz is going to come. You just keep waiting. Everything's going to be fine. And I really didn't have that. I really didn't want to put my trust in waiting for Boaz. Not saying that there's anything wrong with that. It's just wasn't what I felt led to do. And so when I started looking back and reading, it's just a few verses about Anna. But when I started looking back and reading and studying my notes, I thought, I want to live the life of Anna. I want to figure out what is the purpose behind my pain, and then live that purpose out through service for others. And that's basically what I've been doing at this time. And because I wasn't out searching for something more, something different, I was able to really zoom in on what my child needed, what I needed to do to forgive my ex-husband, and what he needed from me so that he could also be the man and the father that he was meant to be. I feel like this also brought him closer to his responsibilities and what he needed to do. And I also think that, like, initially, although it was very isolating not to be able to share my story or feel like I couldn't, I feel like taking that time to heal myself and to not talk bad about him, to focus more on the forgiveness part of it and the healing part for me, that helped as well. So I always say I'm living the life of Anna right now, anyway. Maybe a Boaz is coming, but right now.
So that is so awesome. Wow, wow, wow. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I want to move on to you kind of delved into this a little bit, but I want to move on to why you are a Mocha Girl on a Mission. And we talked a little bit about that. And basically on the blog, a Mocha Girl on a Mission is a woman who lives dynamically in the face of adversity. So can you just share with us why you are a Mocha Girl on a mission?
So, I had this quote that I read, be who you needed when you were younger. And I have 5 nieces. So that's something that I try to do. Like, I try to be there for them in their different circumstances and things that they're going through. I work with children, so I try to be who they need as well, based on what I've been through. But, it also, that quote made me think of, be who you needed when you were just down and out and having a hard time and depressed and felt guilty and ashamed or condemned. Be that person who you needed. It's easy to say that you didn't have this and so you don't know how to give it, but you didn't have it so you know what you needed, and so be that person for someone else. And so right now, I involve myself in a lot of different things. Sometimes people just call me and say, look, my friend is going through a divorce, and I gave her your number. And
You're the expert, huh?
right. And then, I'm involved in a divorce care support group at my church. So I try to kind of just use those opportunities to help other people. And I think that's also why when organizing, it makes it easy for me to kind of connect with people who are going through life circumstances, whether that's a divorce or whether that's a death, that I kind of think back on what that was like for me, and to be a little more patient with people, a little more compassionate, so that they can take the steps they need to move forward.
That's so awesome. That's so awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. So I want to dive into, I know January is Get Organized month, so I want to dive into some of these best practices. I personally, I consider myself to be a pretty organized person. I have my own methods that have worked for me for a few years. But for someone out there who wants to become organized, let's say, I know a lot of women in my community, let's say it's a young mom, she wants to get organized, but she just doesn't have that organization thing. Like, she wasn't raised in that environment. She's just not organized. What advice would you give her? Like, where should she start?
So my first tip is to get a routine, and that routine just has to work for you. For me, my morning routine starts at night. So at night, we get everything together. At around 8 o'clock, we start charging devices. We pack backpacks, lunches, lay things out for breakfast in the morning if that's what we need to do, depending on what's going on. But the morning routine actually starts at night. So everything's done. The ironing is done. The clothes are out. All that's done. So in the morning when I get up, I work out 5:30. I start my morning at 5 with just, and this is not for everyone. I'm a morning person.
I was like, oh my gosh.
I start at 5 with meditation, scripture, my God time. And it's just a brief 15 minutes of just giving God the first of my morning, so that I can kind of fill myself with what I need, so that as I go throughout the day and people are taking from me, I have something to give to them. Because if you don't fill yourself up, you don't have anything to give someone else. So I start that meditation and my God time in the morning. I go to the gym only for about 30, 40 minutes at the most. I'm not in there all day, all morning. I don't have time for that. I do what I can and I get out of there and I come back, I wake my son up, and we are getting ready for the morning. And it's simple and easy because everything's already laid out. So we go through getting dressed, eating breakfast, out the door. We put our things actually by the door. And I think that helps a lot of people too. If you put backpacks and diaper bags and everything by the door, or in the morning, you just grab it and go. Then you're not looking for shoes and you're not looking for the right scarf to wear. Just have all that out, your jacket's by the door, and just get out the door. So that's, I always say my morning routine starts at night because that's how I get out the door in the morning. But that's my number one tip for moms especially, is to get everything together the night before and then feed your soul, however you do that, in the morning first, and then you can move forward.
I love that. That is such a great piece of advice. It kind of reminds me of something my mom taught me when I was younger, and that's like ironing my clothes for the week. That is just so, it cuts so much time, like out of your daily routine. It saves you so much time. So I really appreciate that advice. What about planners? Do you use a certain planner or calendar to just kind of organize your week in your life in general?
I do. My favorite planner is the Passion Planner. And the Passion Planner is what actually helped me start my business. And what I like about the Passion Planner is that it has a visual mind mapping that you can use. So it helps you kind of look at your goals, not just for the year, but your goal for in 3 months, your goal in a half a year, your goal in a year, your goal in 3 years, your goal for a lifetime, or goals for a lifetime. And then it helps you kind of break down and chunk that into smaller steps while you're going through your weekly planning, and kind of putting in different pieces of your goal every week, something to focus on, so that you can get, it's little by little. So as you do these little small steps, you're getting closer to your goal. So I always recommend the Passion Planner. It's my favorite. I actually, and I do not recommend this for everyone, I have probably 4 planners, but it's for a reason.
I get it.
I have a planner that's separate from my Passion Planner because that's personal and that's my passion, and I don't want to clutter it with my outside work. So I have a work planner that's separate from my personal planner for that reason. Miles Monroe said at a conference, your job is not your work. Your job is what they pay you to do, and your work is what you were born to do.
That's right.
So I try to keep those separate. And while a lot of times I do have to come home and do some things for my job, I do try to keep that separate, because if not, I'll begin to build everyone else's dream, and my dream will be pushed to the side. So I recommend using some type of planner or calendar, and it could also be a digital calendar if you work best with Google or the Cozy app. Those are also great, especially to have on the go, so that if you're getting your next doctor's appointment or this or that you can pull it out and quickly put it in your phone, and then transfer it to your paper calendar later.
Very cool. Awesome. What about your son? Would you consider your son, I know he's still preteen, would you consider him to be an organized child, just because you've kind of had these systems in place for him?
Yes. I mean, he's still a boy.
Yeah.
I go into homes all the time helping kids come up with systems and ways to make sure that your dirty clothes actually gets from the floor to the basket, right? Okay. And then I walked into his restroom today and I was like, why is there stuff on the floor? Like, really? Right? Because all so that's just life. But he does have a planner, and we have one of our routines is to schedule organization time. So, and I recommend this for middle school and high school kids. For me, I schedule organization time, but for him, every day at 4:00 when he comes home, he is supposed to check his online calendar, through the school where they post your assignments. And at that time, he works through that work and does what he's supposed to do. And then again at 8:00, I have him go back and you check it again and make sure there's not something that you missed. You go through your backpack, you clean out papers. Oh, you're supposed to do that paper. Well, now you have an hour to do it because you don't go to bed till 9 o'clock. That's why we start at 8. So trying to kind of build that independence with him, but you still have to check in because they're in middle school. A lot of things are going on with their brain. A lot of things are going on hormonally. So, you have to be the one to kind of oversee it, but they can actually do it themselves. And so now it has become a routine, and it's something that's easily transferable from my home to his dad's house. So, that's a system that we can continue to do. He does have a planner, and I'm still working with him on that because I don't really like him taking the planner back and forth because it'll get left somewhere. So being in 2 different homes, that's a little more difficult. But the check-in at 4 and 8 o'clock, that's something that he can do anywhere, whether he's with me or his dad. So I always recommend that there's a weekly or a daily kind of check-in for homework and things like that.
That is so cool. Very, 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 very good advice there. What about when random things come up? I know for me personally, I love my to-do list. I love my schedule. But a struggle for me was when things would happen. Like, let's say I woke up a little late and I was supposed to go to the gym at 6 and it like throws me all off. How do you handle those random things that just kind of pop up when life just says, hey, I'm going to throw this out there? Like, how do you handle those things, being such an organized person?
So the first thing is to stop and get your mind right? To change your mindset. Like, this was supposed to happen and it's not going to, right? So first, just knowing that the plan is changing. Don't try to fix the plan and make it back to what it was. Don't get upset about it. You're wasting energy. So start with your own mindset and say, okay, it's okay. You didn't work out. What's my biggest priorities? What's my biggest focus for the day? And that's another thing I like about the passion planner is that there's a spot for your today's focus, the one thing you need to get done that day. And so if everything else fails for the day, maybe you can at least make that dental appointment that you were supposed to follow, right? That one thing you were supposed to do. And then be gentle with yourself in trying to figure out how to get other things done. Things happen. And sometimes things happen not because something happened to us, but because we did it, right? Like, I just really wanted to go out for drinks with my colleagues after work. And I know I was supposed to go do the workout because I was on day 10 or you're on some kind of plan, or I know I'm supposed to do this. It's okay to be good to yourself and to show yourself some self-compassion. We talk about compassion for other people and kindness toward other people, but we don't often show ourselves self-compassion, and not just self-care, but like just being gentle with yourself. It's self-compassion, kindness to yourself, that it's okay to do something good for you once in a while. That's not in your planner.
I love it. Tiffany, I am so grateful. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I want to ask you, what's next for you in your business and your life? Like, tell us what's next for you.
Oh, wow. So I'm in the process of really kind of building my business. I just started my business in July. So I'm really in the process of building that and trying to figure out, how to continue to work this 9 to 5 for now. And also you have this small business and to help others as well. And I'm also, like everyone else, kind of looking at how do I work through my purpose and really being open and honest about what I need so that I can work toward that. So, I'm looking to develop more content to put out there for people to kind of know more about organizing, to look at different areas of organizing. Student organizing and family organizing is my specialty, but there are all different types of organizers out there. And so I'm looking at different organizing processes. And I've started some virtual organizing. So the coaching and the consulting piece of that is new for me. So that's the one thing that I'm really excited about is the virtual organizing.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Can people reach out to you? Let's say someone's interested and they want to get their life together, they want to organize it. Can they reach out to you for a virtual consultation so you can kind of assess their current life and how they can get more organized? Is that something is that what you do?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. So I'm pretty active on social media most of the time. You can follow me at Tiffany Blass on Twitter and on Instagram. And then Simple Organization has a Facebook page where you can kind of send me messages or show me things and pictures that you're doing at home or that you're working on if you want some help or direction in that area. But yeah, I'm available and happy to help.
That's awesome. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And I want to close out with a piece of advice. I would love to get a piece of advice that you would give a woman out there who is going through a bad breakup or divorce. And I want to touch on specifically a situation in which their partner wasn't faithful, just because I know a lot of women in my circle who deal with that. And I can only imagine just the self-esteem, like what it does to you as a woman. Like I can only imagine. So what one piece of advice would you give a woman out there who's dealing with this in her journey right now?
And that was a big part of my story, Terri. So, for me, it was giving myself the time that I needed to heal. No matter what he was saying, no matter what I thought the church was going to say, no matter what my family was going to think, really trying to think about what I needed. And sometimes that means turning off everything, getting rid of the distractions, turn the phone off, don't respond to the text message right now. You don't have to respond in your emotions, just take care of you and don't deny the fact that you are hurting. A broken heart, is simply the same thing as, or essentially the same thing as open heart surgery, right? When you have open heart surgery, your heart is hurt. And how long is it going to take you to begin to walk again? How long is it going to take you to be able to run that mile again? How long is it going to take you to run that marathon? You're trying to get back at marathon status and you just had a broken heart. It could take you 4 or 5 years to do that. And guess what? That's okay. But I like to make that comparison that,
Beautiful comparison.
It feels like death sometimes. And, it feels like death and your life isn't over, but it is changing. And real life happens to everyone. Look at how your life is changing and just take it step by step to get back to where you need to be.
That was beautifully stated. And I want to just ask a follow-up question, Tiffany. Did you at all have to tell yourself during that process that, this isn't my fault, like someone else's actions, that isn't my fault. It doesn't define me as a woman because this happened to me. Does that make sense?
Right. Well, that was the first thing that I said to myself was that, it's funny, the whole Brad and Jen thing was going on at the same time of my divorce. And I remember, and I know that was years ago, but I remember her saying, I'm not going to let this define who I am. Mm-hmm. And I just kept repeating that to myself for years. Like, I'm not going to let this define who I am. And a lot of times I would date and I would meet people and they want to talk about what happened, tell me about what happened. And I started realizing that I didn't want my whole story to be around that, right? Yes, when I'm helping people, when I'm sharing my story, that's one thing. Mm-hmm. But there's more to Tiffany than just the fact that I am a divorced person. Mm-hmm. And so, I have to always remind myself of that. Like, people often want to know the story, and I'm fine with sharing the story, but I also want you to know more about who I am and where I am now. So
love that. I love it. I love it. Tiffany, I am so happy that we connected. I am so grateful for you being courageous enough to share such a personal piece of your life. I thank you so much. And I know that at least one woman I know is going to be inspired by your story. I'm sure way more than one woman will be inspired by your story. But I thank you. I appreciate you, and I wish you the best on your journey.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me.
You're so welcome. I'll talk to you soon.
Hey love, thanks so much for watching. I hope you were able to take at least one gem away from today's interview. And you know sharing is caring. Feel free to forward this interview to a woman in your life who will benefit from the message. And don't forget to subscribe to the Mocha Girls Pit Stop blog to find more empowering content for Black women. I hope to see you in our community.